So Ghislaine Maxwell's in the news, obviously, for her arrest, but she just had her bail hearing as well. So bail hearing, where they set bail, she pleaded not guilty. She was denied bail. Interesting things to come from it, though, were a lot of great courtroom illustrations, which we all enjoyed. And so she appeared in court, and something interesting that came out in court is that they talked about how Maxwell is perhaps married. So this comes from, she bought her property in New Hampshire where the FBI arrested her. She is married, quite possibly, to someone named Scott. So a real estate agent said that they had purchased the house posing as a married couple named Scott Marshall and Janet Marshall, I believe. So they were a couple. She was posing as a journalist, a British journalist, and he was posing as retired British military. He's going to become a man of letters and write his memoir. And so they posed. They did a quick cash sale under a trust. And they actually do have a trust together. Let me see if I can find that. He's said to be worth $100 million, something like that. And they do have a lot of money tied up with one another, married or not. Yeah, so did Ghislaine and Scott Borgerson have their money tied up together in this LLC, other LLCs, different trusts, and whatnot, perhaps? Were they married? Quite possibly. It came out in court that she is married, and she purchased this house with cash from a trust, from a LLC, with someone stating to be presenting himself as her husband, someone named Scott Marshall. So she was, of course, dating this man at some point, Scott Borgerson. She was said to be hiding out at his house in 2019 in Manchester by the Sea. He denied it. Neighbors had seen them, and there were sightings and things like that. So it's said that they were dating. They were linked romantically, definitely financially, for some time. This was around 2014. It said he left his marriage and his family to be with Ghislaine Maxwell. There is a kind of a laundry list of accusations of spousal abuse, child abuse from his former relationship. So what did these two see about each other? They both were seafaring, lovers of the sea, seafaring folk, right? So let's listen to Ghislaine in her own words when in her philanthropic mode. So this was in 2014.
I'm the founder of an internet project called the Terramar project. It's an ocean-based digital platform which I'm going to be talking to you about. I just want to go back briefly to talk to you about why I got involved in the ocean, and because I think it's important to have history. So I started diving when I was 9, having become passionate about the ocean, watching Jacques Cousteau on TV. And it led to a lifelong exploration around the ocean that ultimately ended with me becoming a deep worker submersible pilot. On one of my first submarine dives, I was absolutely so excited. I thought, my goodness, I'm going to see a new sea creature. I'm going to be this amazing explorer. And off I was. I went down into the deep, and I went down to over 1,500 feet. And at 1,500 feet, I switched on the lights, hoping to see a new mythical sea creature. But in fact, what I saw was a plastic hanger. I was so absolutely devastated, but it was at that moment that I realized that I was really going to dedicate the rest of my life to taking an involvement with and bringing an education around the ocean.
So she dedicated the rest of her life to something, right? Maybe it wasn't the oceans, but it was something. So another seafaring person who was an island hopper, an island lover, she dedicated her life to them, right? So now let's check in with her boyfriend, perhaps husband, perhaps real estate partner, CEO of Cargometrics, Scott Borgerson. You know Scott Borgerson of the Fletcher School, right? Who may have ties to the CIA, much like Ghislaine, who may have ties to Israeli and British intelligence. So let's check in with Scott Borgerson, who spoke to the Council on Foreign Relations, or he's of the Council on Foreign Relations, you know, that good old group that does things like write policy for war and whatnot and lead us into wars. So let's hear what this steely-eyed, totally normal person has to say. This person that doesn't look like they beat their wife and kids. And
yes, well, there are two separate answers to that question. One resource is physical in terms of oil and gas and minerals, and the other might be considered the sea routes, which also could be thought of as a resource, a transportation resource. So it seems that the U.S. Geological Survey just published a report that estimates that 22% of the world's undiscovered but technically recoverable oil and gas resources are found in the Arctic, much of that offshore, and of that, most of it's natural gas. And so previously, the ice blocked much of its exploration, but as the hard multi-year ice melts away, it's becoming more accessible. And of course, as the price of oil remains expensive, it becomes more economically feasible to access those resources as well.
So just a totally normal guy that, he loves the ocean so much, he wants the Arctic to melt so he can drill there and have and ship cargo right through where there once were glacial ice. So they're kind of coming at their love of the ocean from different directions. Ghislaine says she wants to save the oceans. Scott wants to destroy the oceans for profit and plunder. But, maybe they found common ground in their love of islands. So Business Insider writes a little bit more on him. Goes into cargometrics, the maritime company. It was valued at $100 million. I don't know what he's valued at. I misstated that earlier. Okay, so he's tied in with Google, Eric Schmidt. So I talked to you last time about how he might be tied in with Wayfair. They have common interests and common people at both companies. So this was the Manchester by the Sea property that Ghislaine was allegedly staying at. And goes into there. This is in Business Insider. That's Scott and Ghislaine in their own words talking about their love. So I'm trying to get more information as we speak about what perhaps is going on. So I did send a message to the real estate agent who sold them, possibly Scott, but definitely Ghislaine, through their trust that they perhaps share together through the LLC. Her name's Margaret Weathers. She sold them the house in New Hampshire. She's the source for pointing out that, hey, I sold this house to Ghislaine Maxwell, and she said she was a journalist. So I reached out to her, basically asking her if this was the man who identified himself as Ghislaine's husband, who we know now might actually be Ghislaine's husband, Scott Marshall, aka Scott Borgerson. The truth is, we don't really know. It's a definite, interesting connection that she was with someone said to be her husband, also by the name of Scott, and they are kind of playing house as a journalist and a military man. So I'm quite curious to hear what his British accent would have been if it was him, but I intend to keep looking into this. So that's what I found so far on Scott Borgerson, just several connections that interest me. I'm going to keep looking into it myself. If you're looking into it, reach out to me and let me know some things you found or kind of ideas you have of what's under the surface of this story.